Hello, my name is Justin Smith, and today I'm going to talk about the growth of ultra running. But before we talk about the growth of ultra running, it's probably important to understand what exactly is ultra running. So in the early 1900s, ultra running was actually called pedestrian walking. They would have these races around an eighth of a mile track in arenas, and it would sell out. It was the most exciting thing for people to go see. And they would have 6-day races, and of course over the 6-day races, people could cover over 400 miles just by speed walking. And this grew in America and also grew in Europe, and so there were international races. So this was huge until more popular sports like baseball and football came out. Ultra running kind of died off a bit until the 1970s. So in the 1970s at the Tevis Cup, Gordy Ainsleigh's horse went lame, and so he was unable to continue and finish the race. And of course, if you finish a horse race as a cowboy, you get a belt buckle, as you see the buckles next to me. But Gordy thought he could just cover it by foot. He didn't need a horse. So the next year, Gordy came back and he did cover it by foot. So the Tevis Cup, over the years, became the Western States Endurance Run. And this is a 100-mile race in California. And now there are 100-mile races all over the country and all over the world. Now, these 100-mile races didn't all come from horse races. These 100-mile races are just ways for people to explore and learn about the places where they're running. So in Kansas, there is a race called Prairie Spirit 100 Miler. Prairie Spirit Trail is an old railroad, and they ripped up all the railroad ties and they put down crushed limestone. So now people can go out and enjoy the trail that is the old railroad. So the Prairie Spirit 100 Miler is a 50-mile down and 50-mile back on a flat, straight, old railroad trail. And then there's the opposite. Even in Oklahoma, there is the Outlaw 100. So there's a Robbers Cave State Park, and this cave is just such a rocky technical area, and so outlaws have been known to hide out there. As a runner, you can go and run 100 miles on this tough, rocky, technical terrain and get to experience on foot the same area where outlaws have roamed many, many years before. So it's interesting to almost get a in-person history lesson of these places where you're running these 100-mile races. And so that's what ultra running is now. And it's blowing up, but it's not blowing up just because of the amazingness and the ability to explore. It started to grow because of a book called Born to Run. And that was the first thing that really put it on the map. In 2009, the book Born to Run came out, and it sold over 3 million copies. So it's about an author who was having a lot of foot pain when he was running. And he found out that these shoes had big insoles, and so he would push down hard, and once your foot feels the ground, that's when it would respond and your next foot would hit the ground. So these big cushion running soles were actually messing up people's feet and giving them running injuries whenever they would run more and more miles. So he studied the Tarawera Indians in Mexico, found out they run barefoot, and that's because when their foot hits the ground lightly, they feel it and it responds to where they're not doing that hard impact that us Americans were doing. And so he started the minimalist footwear movement. And then he went down to the Tarawera tribe, ran with them, and then he brought down the top athletes in American ultra running and had a race with these Americans against the Tarawera Indians. So he really didn't talk much about American ultra marathons. He just kind of showed that ultramarathon running is a thing and got people interested in the minimalist footwear movement. So the next thing that really, really put ultramarathons on the map wasn't even about the typical ultramarathons today either. The Barkley Marathons is a documentary on Netflix, and there's been multiple documentaries on the Barkleys. And whenever you talk about ultra running, people say, "Oh, have you run the Barkley?" Just because it's that infamous. And no, I have not ran the Barkley. It's so hard to get into. Just to get into it, you have to submit an essay. And the Barkley Marathon, usually these ultramarathons are on marked loops, marked loops or marked trail, to where you know exactly where you're going because the course has a course marking. The race directors really take care of the runners, except for at the Barkley Marathon. This race director hides books in the woods, gives people a map and a compass. You can't have your phone. And if you're racer number 24, you have to go find a book in the woods, rip out page number 24, and then go to the next book hidden in the woods and rip out page number 24. And you would have to do this over a course of a 20-mile loop. And then you would have to do that 5 times to get the 100-mile distance. So the Barkley Marathon has a very low finisher rate, but just the race and the idea of finishing the race itself has captivated the imagination of people, got people interested in ultra running, and just got them searching ultra running to where they now know that ultra running actually exists. And so now people know ultra running exists, they're going to Google search it, and then that's where the social media platforms come in. So Facebook is the great place for people to connect. Running with the Outlaws, that is a Facebook page by the Outlaw 100 race group. So these race directors are creating Facebook pages to build a community, and that community can come together at their races. There's even podcasts out there that create their own Facebook pages. That way the listeners of the podcast can come together and share their stories and almost bond over the podcast that they just listened to. And of course, you've got YouTube channels. Now, YouTube channels are great for ultra runners wanting to share their story, and it's also great for race directors wanting to promote their races. So Born to Run and the Barkley Marathon really put ultra running out there that exists. And then you have the social media that ties everything together. It informs people, it inspires people, and it gets people out there. And now these people are going out, running races, and finding out that running ultra marathons isn't for elite athletes. It is for anyone who wants to put in the time to do the training and that has the confidence or at least craziness to go out and give it a try. So that is my explanation on the growth of ultra running, and I hope you guys learned something today. Thank you very much.